If you're sitting the UCAT this year, there are some key dates that you need to have at front of mind. Now, some of them are pretty straightforward, but there are a few that need a little bit of explaining, so I will go through all of them now to help you understand exactly where to place your focus. So I will put all of the dates on here now. Now, although this is for this year, it doesn't really matter that much because they're typically around the same sort of times every year. So obviously check if you're looking at this at a later year, but it will be pretty much the same, and all the things that I'm going to tell you are still going to be relevant. So the most important thing is to understand the testing window. So it's always around the start of July, the first week or so of July, until the end of September, the last week of September. So there is quite a long, probably what's that, about 10-week period within which you can actually sit the test. So really important to bear that in mind, and I'm going to talk about how to choose when to sit that test a bit later. Now, arguably equally important that I want to talk about is the test booking date. When that opens, usually around mid-June, it is really important. You'll see that it is at 6 a.m, so really early in British Standard Time, and that's really important to bear in mind because it's actually incredibly popular. The UCAT, when people are booking it, especially if you live in a big city or you want a popular time, it's really important to get on there at 6 a.m. It's a bit like a hot concert ticket. You know, you want to make sure that you get a good spot before it gets sold out, because you will be amazed at how if you come on at 8 o'clock, a lot of the really favorable and popular slots will be taken. And the last thing that you want is to not be able to sit the UCAT at a time that you're most alert, that suits you, but also that you're having to travel far to a destination or a test center that is going to put you out and affect your preparation or affect your mental state on the day. We want to make it as easy as possible. So really pay attention to that date and make sure that it is in your calendar and you're going to be on the ball that day. So there are also some other dates I'm going to tell you about a bit later that aren't on this list that are of equal importance. But because the booking date is so important, it's also important to bear in mind the registration date. Now, this registration date opens about a month before, so around mid-May, but it takes a little bit of time to set up your account and have all of that stuff. So we want to have that done at least before that 6 a.m. on the booking opening day. I'd recommend obviously doing it a few days before. It's pretty straightforward to do, but like I say, it's time consuming. So when it's hectic and the booking places are getting filled up, we don't want to be having to worry about that stuff. We just want it done and taken care of, so that all we have to do on booking day is to just log in and pick our slot. So if you need any additional support, access arrangements need to be done by mid-September. And then also if you have a bursary scheme, that's done towards the end of September as well. A really important deadline is towards kind of mid to end of September, which is the final booking deadline. So if you're coming late to the party and you didn't book it in June, like I said, that is the very final date to which you can book on to sit the UCAT. What happens sometimes with people, if they're not feeling well prepared, they can kind of have their booking date in mind, but they'll get to about a week out and they're not feeling like they're ready and they're not going to score well. Sometimes people will change it, but really I would say the idea is to start early, be very methodical, well prepared with how you go about it. And here is a very good video that I've just made recently to deconstruct how to do well in the UCAT. But as long as you're prepared and you're not kind of panicking and all of that sort of stuff, you should really want to sit it, I would say, early in the window, and I'll tell you exactly how to pick your date for you in a moment. But you want to be doing it early on, just be very methodical, come to it in a very organized way, and that should give you the best way to score highly. Now, as you may know, you get your UCAT result immediately after you set the exam. So as soon as the test is done, you get a score. Now, that will give you a very good idea of how you've done, but it's only once everybody's sat the exam that you'll get the results of the deciles and where that lands you in relation to all of the other people who've taken the test. Now, there are two results that get released. About halfway through September, they release the preliminary results. So that's the people who have sat the test, the first half of people. So the first half of that long window that we talked about, they will give you the data for those people. Now, typically, for some reason, the people score highly usually in the first half of the people taking the test. Like I say, it's probably those people who are well organized and not delaying it, whereas all those people who are delaying it are because they're performing badly and then maybe might not do as well as the other cohort. So those preliminary results will give you the average score, the deciles or the ranges or the thresholds for those. But like I say, those tend to drop when they release the final results, which come in the first week of October. Now, the reason those dates are significant did is because it is important to understand where you have scored compared to everybody else, because that is going to help guide what you do with your UCAT score and what universities you choose and how you frame your entire application based on those things. Now, we made a video recently to say what to do after your UCAT once you've got your score, so you can check that out here. But ultimately, it is still going to guide you, and the ultimate deadline for submitting your UCAS application is on the 15th of October. Now again, this is why we want to be organised and have all of this stuff ahead of time, but if you are a borderline score and it is going to influence where you apply and how tactical you are, that is going to matter and help if you're organised ahead of time. Now, a great resource that I would recommend for free is if you go to the Future website, we have an application guide, and the better thing that we have is a little infographic. So on one page you can see absolutely every single university for medical schools, and you can see which ones value high UCAT scores, low, tolerant of low UCAT scores, the ones that are middling, and it will help you decide roughly, and it's just as a precursory kind of glance for where you should look deeper into, but what universities you might want to consider based on your UCAT score. Now, the only other thing that I haven't mentioned on this list is early November, when UCAT send the scores to the universities, but really that's a passive thing. You don't have to worry about that. That's done automatically, so it doesn't really concern you. But like I said, with all these things in mind, when should you actually book your UCAT? Although you're going on there on the start of the booking date, like I say, you're being there at 5 to 6 a.m. to make sure you get the slot you want. Which slot should you actually choose? I would recommend that you think of the 3 following things. When I'm teaching my UCAT students, and we sit down for a long time to help devise a plan individual for them, but also when they're going to sit it and how we're going to frame that to give them the best possible chance of success. We think of 3 things. The first is minimal encroachment on other things. So for you, that could be exams coming up, A-levels, it could be uni exams, it could also be family stuff. You might have a big family wedding, it could be anything, but we want it to be minimally impactful on that stuff. Equally impact the result of exams, say, but also be impacted by the exams. So you want it to be separated so that you can focus solely on the UCAT without it having a negative effect on other things or other things having a negative effect on that. The second thing is obviously you want enough time to prepare. So again, this is a very individual thing that we sit down with our students and analyze where they're at, how much time they can allocate to it, and what score they need so that we can make a plan that is going to make sure they get there. But how much time you need is a really important factor. So again, if you have other stuff, that means that you have to start a little bit later. You need to identify a window where you can isolate exactly how much time you need, and if you need to know roughly how much time that is, you can check out this video here where I give you the basics of how to make a good UCAT plan for yourself. But then once you have identified that, you know the time, and then you can allocate your slot to actually sit the test after you feel like you've had enough time to prepare. And then the third and most important thing is to have enough time for a plan B. So in the past, that meant for undergraduates that you'd be sitting the BMAT. Let's see what happens and how that unfolds. But it could still mean that if you don't have the UCAT score that you wanted, you have enough time to think about universities being very tactical. On the Future program, we have a lot of students who think they're going to do well by themselves, don't do particularly great on the UCAT, but then they come to us because remember that it's not just all about the UCAT. It's about your application as a whole, how much other stuff you build around it, how good your CV is, how you tactically choose good universities based on you and your individual circumstances, and still to this day, despite what people say, writing a good personal statement. So ultimately, we want to do that early enough, do the UCAT early enough so that we've got time to execute on plan B. And like I say, doing research around what universities are gonna be the best ones given our circumstances and all the other stuff that I've just mentioned. So that should help you understand why the dates are really important. But if you would like some help with your UCAT or your whole medical or dental school application, I recommend you check out this program here where we've had really, really good success with helping students one-on-one through the entire process to make sure they optimize every single bit about their application and their preparation to make it not only plain sailing, but fun and just almost guarantee that they deliver the best possible application they can and get them into their dream medical or dental school. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you over in one of those videos.